There are moments when the world stops making sense. Moments when logic, science, and reason simply fall apart. A hospital room where a dying man speaks languages he's never learned. A highway in the middle of nowhere, where time itself seems to freeze. And a photograph that captures something no one remembers seeing. Tonight, we'll explore 3 true supernatural encounters, stories witnessed, recorded, and investigated, but still unsolved. No theories, no explanations. Just 3 chilling events that defy everything we know about reality. Are you ready to question what's real? Story 1. The patient who spoke to the dead. I used to work night shifts as a nurse at a small hospital in Boston back in the early 80s. Our ward wasn't large, maybe 15 rooms, mostly older patients in long-term care. You learn quickly that nights in a hospital have a rhythm of their own. Machines hum like mechanical breathing. The lights flicker just enough to make you second-guess what you saw. And every creak in the hallway sounds louder when you're the only one awake. That was the world I lived in, until Arthur Bell was admitted to room 213. Arthur was 78. Thin, pale, with that hollow look people get when their bodies are still here, but their souls already seem halfway gone. He had heart failure. No family. No visitors. Still, there was something different about him, polite, quiet, and always watching the corners of the room like he was waiting for something. The first few nights were uneventful. He'd sleep lightly, mumbling now and then, sometimes whispering names under his breath. I didn't think much of it. Patients do that all the time. But on the 4th night, everything changed. It started around 3:12 a.m. I remember because I was charting vitals when his heart monitor beeped irregularly. When I walked in, Arthur was sitting upright, eyes wide open, staring at the far wall. He was whispering. At first, I thought he was praying. Then I realized he wasn't speaking English. It sounded alt. The syllables were sharp, rhythmic, almost ritualistic. When I leaned closer, my skin prickled. He was speaking in Latin. I knew because I had studied some in college, just enough to recognize phrases. Things like venite ad me, come to me, and porta aperta est, the gate is open. It was strange. The man had no record of higher education, no indication he knew another language. When I gently called his name, his eyes rolled toward me. He smiled faintly, a tired, knowing smile. "They're here for me," he said softly. "Old friends. Some I've never met." His voice was calm, almost comforting. But the air in the room felt wrong. Like something invisible was pressing down on my chest. I checked his vitals. Heart rate elevated, temperature dropping. When I looked at the thermometer, it read 51 degrees Fahrenheit inside the room. The hallway outside was a normal 72. That was the first night I called maintenance. They checked the air vents, no issue. No leaks. No drafts. The next night, it happened again. Same time. 3:12 a.m. Arthur woke up, eyes still closed, and began whispering in that same voice. But this time, he wasn't alone. The intercom in his room, the one connected to the nurse's station, started to pick up faint static. Through it, I heard a faint murmuring, like a crowd whispering from far away. Dozens of voices overlapping, indecipherable, but real. Another nurse, Caroline, heard it too. We stood there, frozen, listening. And right as Arthur whispered, "They're calling," every monitor in the room flatlined for half a second, then returned to normal. I'll never forget the look on Caroline's face. She was pale as the sheets. We both agreed not to mention it to the head nurse. We'd only get laughed at. But the pattern continued. Every night, 3:12 a.m., Arthur would speak to the empty air. Sometimes smiling. Sometimes crying quietly. Sometimes repeating that one phrase. "The gates are open." On the 6th night, I decided to record it. I brought a small cassette recorder, the kind reporters used, and left it hidden behind the curtain. I wanted proof, or at least some logical explanation. When I played the tape the next morning, it didn't help. At first, you could hear the normal hospital sounds, beeping, faint breathing. Then, Arthur's voice. Calm, steady, reciting that strange Latin again. And under his voice, the tape captured something else. Faint, distant, like wind through a tunnel. Except it wasn't wind. If you turned up the volume, you could hear dozens of overlapping voices, whispering in rhythm with his words. The weirdest part? When he said, "Porta aperta est," the gate is open, the whisper stopped. Completely. Then there was a sound like a door closing underwater. I can't describe it any better than that. That same night, Arthur's condition worsened. He was restless, sweating, clutching his chest, but still whispering. Caroline and I stayed by his side. At 3:12 a.m., his eyes shot open, pupils fully dilated. He stared straight ahead, like he was looking past the wall, into something beyond. Then, in a voice that didn't sound human, he said, "We are ready." It wasn't just deep. It sounded like multiple people speaking through him at once. Caroline screamed. The heart monitor spiked, then flatlined. We called the code, tried resuscitation, but it was useless. Arthur was gone. The time of death was recorded as 3:13 a.m. Afterward, I went to remove the tape recorder from the room. When I picked it up, it was ice cold. The metal casing had a thin layer of frost. The recording survived, but when I played it later that day, something had changed. After Arthur's last words, there was silence. Then a faint whisper, not his. Just one sentence, spoken slowly in English. "The gate is open." That's it. End of tape. I kept it for years. Part of me wanted to destroy it, but another part couldn't. It felt like proof that something exists beyond what we can explain. Eventually, the hospital confiscated the recording, labeling it anomalous evidence. I was told not to talk about it. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I swear I still hear his voice. That same calm whisper, close to my ear. Repeating those same words over and over again. And every clock in my house stops at 3:12 a.m. Story 2, The Highway That Ate Time. This story happened to me and my wife almost 20 years ago, but it's something I still think about every time I get behind the wheel. We were newly married then, full of that early excitement, the kind that makes you want to drive anywhere, just to be together. It was 2004. We were living in Phoenix, and one weekend we decided to take a spontaneous trip to Las Vegas. It's only about a 5-hour drive, most of it through open desert. We left around 9 p.m., planning to arrive close to midnight, just in time to check in and crash before exploring the strip the next day. It was a clear, warm night. The highway, Route 93, stretched out endlessly, a ribbon of pale asphalt under the moon. I remember how quiet it was. No other cars. No wind. Just the hum of the tires and the radio playing softly in the background. Around 10:30 p.m., we saw the sign. The local access road. An arrow pointed toward a narrow side road cutting into the dark. At the time, we didn't think much of it. There was construction on Route 93 back then, so a detour wasn't unusual. I turned the wheel and took the side road. The asphalt was rougher, but the car handled fine. After a few minutes, though, something felt tough. There were no more reflective signs. No telephone poles. No distant glow of headlights behind us. Just pitch-black desert. And above us, the sky, completely starless. I didn't notice at first. It was my wife, Lisa, who asked, "Where are the stars?" I looked up. Nothing. No moon. No light. Just an endless ceiling of black. I told her maybe clouds had rolled in, but the air felt dry, too dry. We drove for maybe 30 minutes, and I realized the dashboard clock still said 9:17 p.m. I tapped the glass, thinking it was stuck, but then I looked at my watch. Same thing, 9:17. Lisa noticed it too. That's when the unease started creeping in. After another few miles, we saw a glow up ahead, a neon sign, flickering red against the darkness. It was a diner, a lonely building surrounded by nothing but dirt. The sign buzzed weakly, "Ethel's Diner, open 24 hours." We were relieved. Hungry, tired, maybe a little creeped out, but relieved. When we pulled in, the first thing I noticed was the cars parked outside. They looked ancient, 1950 Chevrolets, an old pickup, a few others I couldn't even identify. Every one of them was coated in dust, like they hadn't moved in decades. Lisa laughed nervously, saying maybe it was a classic car meet. But the second we stepped out, the air felt wrong. It was heavy and still, like being underwater. No wind. No sound. Inside, the diner was bright, fluorescent lights humming, a jukebox softly playing "Love Me Tender." The smell of coffee and bacon hung in the air, fresh and warm. But there was no one there. Not a single person. No cook, no waitress, no customers. Yet half-eaten plates of food sat on the counter. A cup of coffee still steaming. Lisa whispered, "Dan, maybe we shouldn't be here." But curiosity got the better of me. I walked to the counter, picked up a newspaper that was lying there. The date on the front page read, July 3rd, 1956. I remember feeling this sudden chill run up my spine. I flipped through it, thinking maybe it was an old decoration, something retro. But the paper was crisp, not aged, not yellowed. Like it had been printed that morning. When I looked up again, Lisa was standing near the window, staring outside. Her face was pale. "Dan," she said quietly, "where's our car?" I ran to the door, and she was right. The parking lot was empty. No cars. Not even tire tracks. Just dust blowing slowly across the ground. That's when the lights in the diner flickered. The jukebox skipped, and for a split second, the sound that came out of it wasn't music, it was a distorted scream. Then everything went silent again. Lisa grabbed my arm. "Let's go." We ran out into the darkness, completely disoriented. The diner behind us was still glowing red, that sign buzzing faintly. I started driving back the way we came, or at least I thought it was. The road seemed endless. No turns. No signs. The darkness pressed in from all sides. Then, out of nowhere, we hit a patch of fog. Thick, swirling, grayish-white fog that came out of nowhere. Visibility dropped to 0. Lisa was sobbing by then. I just kept my eyes on the center line, praying I'd see something familiar. And then, we burst out of it. The fog disappeared, and the world snapped back. The stars were visible again. The road signs reappeared. The hum of other cars in the distance returned. It was like we'd crossed an invisible barrier. When I looked at the dashboard clock, it said 2:45 a.m. Our phones said the same thing. We had been gone for over 5 hours. But the strangest part? The gas gauge hadn't moved. The odometer hadn't changed. It was as if the car had never left the main road. We drove the rest of the way in silence. Neither of us spoke a word about what happened. Not then, not even when we reached Vegas. When we pulled into the hotel, the front desk clerk looked at us funny. He said, "You folks driving from Phoenix? You look like you've seen a ghost." We just laughed it off, but we didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I checked the map, trying to find that side road. Nothing. No record of a local access route or a diner named Ethel's anywhere near that stretch. When we drove back home 2 days later, I slowed down at the same area. There was nothing but flat desert. No side road. No turnoff. Just endless dirt and cactus. Months later, I tried searching old records out of curiosity. I found an article, July 1956. It was about a diner outside of Kingman, Arizona, that burned down in a kitchen fire. Everyone inside died. The name of the place? Ethel's Diner. Lisa refuses to talk about it now. Even mentioning it makes her anxious. She says sometimes, when she dreams, she hears that jukebox song again. "Love Me Tender," playing softly in an empty room. As for me, I don't know what we stumbled into that night. A time slip? A hallucination? Something else? All I know is it was real. And sometimes, when I drive late at night, I still see flashes of that red neon light glowing faintly at the edge of the desert. It's never there when I go back for it, but just for a moment, I swear I see the sign flicker. Ethel's Diner, open 24 hours. And my dashboard clock? Every time I pass that stretch of road, it freezes. 9:17 p.m. Story 3. The Photograph from Nowhere. This story has haunted my family for over 40 years. It sounds unbelievable, like something out of a ghost story, but I promise you, everything I'm about to tell actually happened. And we still don't have an explanation. It started in the summer of 1979. My grandparents, John and Margaret Crawford, lived in a small town in Oregon. They weren't rich, but they had a nice life, quiet, peaceful. My grandfather worked as a mechanic, my grandmother taught elementary school. That year, the whole family decided to have a picnic at a local park. Me, my parents, my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, and a few cousins. It was a warm Sunday afternoon. The kind of day that smells like fresh grass and lemonade. Back then, my grandfather loved his Polaroid camera. You know, the kind that spits out the photo instantly, and you have to shake it while it develops. He took a lot of pictures that day, the kids playing, my grandmother slicing watermelon, my dad grilling burgers. It was all perfectly normal. Until that one photograph. After lunch, my grandfather set the camera on a picnic table, aimed it toward the group, and asked everyone to gather around. He set the timer, ran over to join us, and smiled right as the shutter clicked. We all watched as the photo slid out, that white-bordered square slowly darkening, the image forming. We laughed, waited for the color to appear. But when it did, my grandmother stopped smiling. The picture showed all of us, sitting and standing around the picnic table, except there was someone else in the photo. A woman. She was standing directly behind our group, smiling. But none of us had seen her there when the picture was taken. She wasn't blurry, she looked solid, detailed, as if she'd been standing among us. She wore a long dress, old-fashioned, maybe from the 1800s. Her hair was pulled up neatly, her hands folded in front of her. At first, we thought it was some kind of mistake. Maybe a reflection, or someone walking behind us at the wrong moment. But when we looked closer, something didn't make sense. She wasn't standing on the ground. Her feet were slightly above it, and the sunlight hit her differently, like she was lit from another angle entirely. Everyone fell silent. My grandfather frowned, shook his head, and muttered, "That's not possible." He swore he'd seen no one behind the group when he set up the shot. We took a few more pictures after that just to test it, same spot, same lighting, and every one of them came out normal. The mysterious woman appeared only in that single photo. That night, my grandmother couldn't stop looking at it. She kept running her finger over the woman's face, whispering, "She looks familiar." But she couldn't place why. For the next few days, she left the photo on the kitchen table, staring at it constantly, like she was trying to remember something. Then one morning, she called my mom in tears. She said she had remembered where she'd seen that woman before. When my grandmother was a little girl, she used to stay at her aunt's farmhouse outside of Eugene. She told stories of how, late at night, a woman in an old dress would appear at the edge of her bed, smiling kindly, just watching. It happened several times throughout her childhood. Her aunt always said it was a dream. But when she described the woman to us, the soft smile, the folded hands, the dark hair pinned neatly, it was the exact same person from the photo. That's when things started getting weird. A few days later, my grandparents noticed something strange about the Polaroid. The image was slowly changing. It started with the trees in the background. They looked different, darker, like they were losing leaves even though it was summer. Then, the faces of everyone in the picture began to fade slightly, except for the strange woman. She stayed perfectly clear, her expression subtly shifting. Her smile wasn't warm anymore. It looked almost sad. My grandfather thought the photo was deteriorating, maybe bad film. But when he compared it to the other Polaroids from that day, all the others were perfectly fine. Just that one photo was changing. A week later, the picture disappeared from the kitchen table. My grandmother swore she didn't move it. They tore the house apart looking for it, drawers, photo albums, even under the furniture, but it was gone. Life moved on, but the story of that photograph became family lore, something whispered at gatherings, like an eerie inside joke that still gave everyone goosebumps. Then, about a year later, just before Christmas, a plain white envelope arrived in my grandparents' mailbox. No return address. No stamp. Inside was a Christmas card. The front of the card had a familiar image, a faded, reprinted version of that same photograph. Our family, the picnic table, the woman behind us. Except this time, everyone else in the picture was completely blurred, and only the woman was in focus. Inside, in elegant cursive handwriting, was a short message. "We're never strangers, only separated by time." My grandmother dropped the card. She recognized the handwriting immediately. It matched her own mother's. who had been dead for over 6 months. They burned the card that same night, terrified. But for weeks afterward, small things started happening around the house. Footsteps in the hall when no one was there. The faint smell of lilacs, my great-grandmother's favorite perfume, drifting through empty rooms. And sometimes the old Polaroid camera would click by itself, as if someone had pressed the shutter. Then one night my grandfather woke up to find my grandmother standing in the living room, holding the camera. She was crying. When he asked what was wrong, she said, "She wants another picture." That was the last time the camera ever worked. It broke the next morning, refused to power on again even with new batteries. My grandmother passed away 10 years later. When we cleaned out the attic, we found a small wooden box wrapped in a silk cloth. Inside were dozens of old Polaroids, most of them blank, but a few had strange smudges of light and shadow. And in the very last photo in the stack, there she was again. The woman, smiling softly. Only this time, she was holding a small photograph of us. The same picnic photo, like she'd taken it from us and returned it to her own world. To this day, I don't know what to believe. Maybe it was some trick of film, maybe my grandmother had been right all along, that the woman was something beyond this world. But sometimes, when I look through old family pictures, I notice the edges of certain ones are a little darker. And if I stare long enough, I swear I can see her face forming again, just barely visible behind us. Waiting. Smiling. As if she's still trying to remind us. We're never strangers. Only separated by time.